Hi, and welcome. We are so excited today to be launching Down to Business, hosting the launch, I should say. Yes. And we have, this is co-authored by Fenley Scurlock and Jason Liaw. And Jason cannot be here today. This is Young Entrepreneurs Ask and Industry Leaders Answer. Down to Business. And we are going to introduce one of the authors today first. This is Fenley, and sometimes people call him Fen Scurlock. He launched his first business at age 7, selling artisanal soaps at farmers markets and business fairs. He learned how to write business plans and market products. And Jason, like I said, he can't be with us, but we really wanted to thank you guys for joining us. This book is so extraordinary because we've got two young entrepreneurs who got their start in the business world before they even reached middle school. And with them today is India Abrams. India is 10 years old and lives in New York City. I was blocking you, wasn't I? She's the founder and CEO of Beads for Goods, a social purpose business that donates 50% of all sales to She's the First. And so far she's donated $886.09? Yep. Okay, She's the First. We're current. So far she's donated that, and India's also started the Tiny CEO interview series. Some of you may have heard of that, where she speaks to women entrepreneurs and executives about how to start and lead organizations. India was recently featured on the 10 News, a podcast for kids. And you can follow Beads for Goods on Instagram at India Beads for Good. And your hobbies, can I say your hobbies? Yeah. Okay. They include reading, playing piano and guitar, practicing French on Duolingo, ballet, and tennis, and of course, beading. She has an older sister who's here today, Serena, and a younger brother, Conrad. And last summer, she went to sleepaway camp for the first time. Usually people go to sleepaway camp and then they start their own business, but it's the reverse. So, and we have another wonderful. Here's Amanda Baldwin here. I want to give you her introduction. Amanda's the CEO of Olaplex, the leader in innovative science-enabled hair care, having disrupted the industry 10 years ago with the invention of bond-building technology to protect and strengthen the hair. Prior to joining Olaplex, Amanda served as Chief Executive Officer of Supergoop, the leading SPF skincare brand, since August 2016. So we're happy to welcome Amanda. And we also have here today for our legal questions, we have legal correspondent. Lisa Rubin is an MSNBC legal correspondent and a former litigator. Previously, she was the off-air legal analyst for The Rachel Maddow Show and Alex Wagner Tonight. So we are really honored. We've got some really powerhouse people here today, and I will let you take it away. Lisa, thanks.
Thank you all so much for coming. I promise we are not going to talk about law at all, but we are going to talk a lot about business, and specifically getting down to business with Fen, and then we'll also involve India and Amanda in the conversation. Fen, I know you're not used to being alone in talking about this book because Jason was fully your partner, but could you talk about what about business grabbed you so early on in your life, and what made you want to learn more about how people experience business and disrupt and create businesses well into their lifespan?
Sure. So first, is my volume fine? Because I know I don't have a mic. So all right, perfect. Yeah. So
papers for him back. Would you like your papers back?
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you.
There you go. In case I left anything out.
All right. So I have, as you mentioned, I've been interested in entrepreneurship since I was 7. Was when I started my business selling soaps, and then I later added pens as well. And I think that part of my motivation was simply the fact that I enjoyed the art of it, that I've always, I think, been an artist at heart, first making soaps, then pens, then words as my newest product. And I think that, so a part of it was simply enjoying that, and also I enjoyed the entrepreneurial process, and the skills that I was learning I felt were not only something which I enjoyed, they were not only something which I was passionate about, which as the people we talked about, spoke with talked a lot about how important passion is as a part of starting a business. But more than that, I think that it was something where I felt that an education in entrepreneurship was a crucial skill in my education. It was something that I felt that I needed to learn because I felt like I was learning so much. How to negotiate, how to manage my own finances, how to market products, or calculate profit and loss. And I think that everything that I learned was also things that I realized that I wasn't learning in school. And Jason had similar experiences. He developed websites for companies, and also felt that he was learning things that weren't really available to him or in formal education. And we, through that, felt that the process was that the education was somewhat lacking surrounding entrepreneurship. We were lucky in the fact that we had mentors and people who could help us along our journey, but we realized that not everyone would have access to those resources, even in a day and age of the internet and easily accessible information, that there was a sore lack of experienced mentors in entrepreneurship for people. And that was really what we wanted to correct with the book. We thought, how can we speak with people who have already made it? And that was kind of, it transitioned gradually from our passion for entrepreneurship individually and our desire to learn about entrepreneurship to how we can ensure that everyone can have that passion fulfilled.
Well, I'm interested in how the book came about. Did you first reach out to people because you were curious about particular individuals, and then the process evolved into a book, or was it always the desire to, as you said, sort of accumulate some knowledge and share it with people who are lacking it in their day-to-day education, and the letters were an outgrowth of that?
The letters were an outgrowth of that. We were intending to write a book with it. From the very first interview with Ken Stern, of the former president of NPR, and in our process of writing the book, I think that one of the things that we were trying to do was we wanted to reach out. As you mentioned, reaching out to businesses we admired, that we were passionate about. We did, I think, focus our efforts in reaching out to businesses that we felt that we found interesting, that we found what they were doing admirable or inspiring. And I think that ultimately it was a situation where we were learning just as much as we were compiling a book, but at the same time we did have the intention, I think, of writing a book, yes, to share that knowledge, and also just with the idea in mind that entrepreneurship is an important skill in entrepreneurship, also in life. And I think that was something that we gradually realized the farther along in the process that we went, that really we were learning entrepreneurship, but we were also being entrepreneurs. It just so happens that our product was, as I said earlier, our product was words.
I'm interested in how you identified the people that you wanted to interview, because when I was going through the book, there were some names in here that were really recognizable to me, or just products where I didn't necessarily know the name of the person that you interviewed before I read the book, but the product was recognizable to me. Dagny Dover is a good example of that. Or Jenny Britton, the founder of Jenny's Ice Cream. I'm a huge ice cream eater, so I was very excited to see her in the book.
My favorite company, ice cream company.
How did you identify the people that you were interested in speaking with?
So, as I mentioned, a part of it was simply products that we ourselves were passionate about. We started out with businesses that we knew about, that we admired, that we might have know through a mutual contact or friend, businesses in our local community, and from there we reached out for, both through we expanded our network by asking after each interview if they had anyone who they knew who they thought would be a good fit, who they could connect us with, and also we reached out. In many cases, we reached out through LinkedIn or just email or even cold calling to a PR person or the CEO themselves for businesses we've researched through, whether it be we looked at lots of Forbes 30 under 30 lists and other lists of young entrepreneurs. We looked at various entrepreneurial-related organizations, such as one was Beta Camp was one that we found through a few people we talked to through, and so it was really a variety of different places that we found the people we interviewed from, and I think that helped with our book as well, because one of the core things that we wanted to do was have a diverse cast of people, so that anyone reading the book could find something that they looked up to, that they admired, that they saw themselves in as an entrepreneur. And I think that diversity extended to where we met or found out about these entrepreneurs as well.
So one of the things I think is really interesting about your book is that you divide the leaders that you interviewed into these leader archetypes of the disruptor, the visionary, the champion, the innovator, the creator, the investor, and the strategist. Did you have that framework from the outset? Or as you interviewed people, did it become clear, oh, these people have these attributes in common, and this is how we're going to describe them in the book?
I think that we had an idea from the beginning of organizing the interviews in some way. We didn't just want it to be an anthology of 50 people with no organization to it, but at the same time, I think that one of the things that we found throughout the book is that not only was it difficult to come up with what the right categories were, but also we found that most, if not all, of the people we interviewed could easily fit in multiple categories. That oftentimes it wasn't a case where someone who was a strategist couldn't also be a disruptor or an innovator, or that a creator couldn't also be an investor, but rather that we found that it wasn't arbitrary, but it was very much a creative choice, I think, in terms of how we divided the people into various sections. And I think that part of it was just, it was a fun way to organize the book, and part of it was that we wanted to really give an idea to people reading the book of what type of entrepreneur do I want to be, and to, within those categories, give them a variety of ideas perhaps of what's out there when it comes to entrepreneurship, that what the different types of entrepreneurs you can be, and also all the different directions within those categories that you can take it.
We were just talking about all the ways in which entrepreneurs are different. Let me flip it on its head and ask you, when you look across this book at the 51 people that you're interviewing, what are some of the common traits that you noticed that they all shared?
I would say there are a few key characteristics that were that either they all shared, that they developed in their journey as an entrepreneur, or that they advised were crucial for developing. I think that one of the primary ones was starting early. I think that was probably the unifying theme of the book, is that you don't have to wait until you're in your 30s to start a business. That everyone we talked to, the ones that started early were glad that they did start early. The ones that started later wish that they had started earlier. And I think that beyond that, some of the common threads that we saw across the people we interviewed were things like developing grit and resilience was a common idea. That, for instance, lots of the people we interviewed often saw a lot of rejection and failure before they saw their first success. For instance, one of the CEOs we interviewed, when searching for capital for an investor, got 86 no's before they got their first yes, and that was a memorable figure for us. But it was something that lots of the people we talked to agreed with. I would also mention networking was something that that nearly everyone we interviewed mentioned was key to their success. That in many cases, for instance, we often asked about college even, and we found that some people even said that, I remember one memorable quote, one of the people we interviewed said that they didn't remember using anything they had learned in college today, but they still thought that they couldn't have made it as an entrepreneur without it, purely because of the connections they made. And I think that illustrates in particular how valuable, whether it be to building a customer base, whether it be to finding potential media, whether it be finding the investor for the idea in the first place, how crucial networking is to the process. I would I would say that those are all key skills. I would say breaking it up into smaller manageable pieces, taking no as an opportunity to learn and to improve and innovate rather than a feeling of rejection or failure. And I think that those are just a few of the various characteristics that the entrepreneurs we talked to saw. We actually, I don't have the book with me. Can I borrow that?
Yeah, I shared.
So what we did was, let me see if I can. At the end of every chapter, we had key takeaways that were just bullet pointed things of the specific advice that they had that summed up from the interview, which was a way, I think, not only to make it digestible for young readers, but also they were in many cases things where they were related and interconnected, oftentimes between various entrepreneurs, and there were really so many different pieces of advice. But I think that that ultimately, yes, as you said, that while it is an individual journey, there's key skills that most people agree you needed to if you wanted to pursue and succeed in entrepreneurship.
Everybody in this book did right by you by participating, and I noticed that you and Jason said in the introduction that one of the things you learned because you cast your net widely is that there were a lot of people who didn't respond to you or they said no, and that you learned how to say thank you and move on. Recognizing that everybody who responded to you deserves some praise for sharing their advice with you. Now that we are among friends, who was your favorite interviewee? And if I were to pose that question to Jason, would he have a different answer, and what would it be?
I always find that question difficult, I will admit,
know.
because it's like choosing between whether this is something that whether it be asking about like favorite books or favorite, whatever the question may be, picking out a single person, a single thing amongst a list of ones, all of which I learned from. In this case, I feel like the people that we talked to were all like trusted mentors and people we learned a lot from. So I feel like pinpointing a single one is difficult, but with that said, I would mention, firstly, I would say one person that I was inspired by was, and I will freely admit on this one that I'm biased, but Danielle Vincent, who is the CEO of Outlaw Soaps. And you might be saying, soaps? Yeah, I too, as a fellow business owner of a soap business, that was a source of inspiration for me that I learned. I saw a lot of the things that I learned when I was first starting my business. Although as time goes on, that business has gradually shifted to the book becoming my newest business. But that said, I would say that was one interview where I saw a lot of the things that I learned reflected in another person who had similar struggles. I would also point to Brandon and Sebastian Martinez, who were the co-founders and CEO and CTO? Don't quote me on that. One of the another C-suite officer of Are You Kidding Socks, which was they actually, I mentioned them because they started when they were 6 and 8. So they were, and when we talked to them, they were actually younger than us. So that they were the youngest people we interviewed in the book, and I think that was another source of inspiration because really they were doing what we had, what our entire book was setting out to show was possible.
So I have 2 daughters, they're 10 and 14. If I were to take this book home, and I'm going to, and ask them to read it, and they had a response to you, what's like the thing that someone could say to you about this book that would warm your heart the most? What would make you proudest if someone responded to you about the book?
This isn't per se saying something, but I would say that one of the things that would make me proudest is if someone came up to me and said that I read your book and it inspired me to start a business and now I'm a CEO. That would really be, that's exactly what we're hoping will happen. So I think that if someone attributed their interest in entrepreneurship, their exposure to entrepreneurship, and their decision to pursue and educate themselves in entrepreneurship to our book, that would be so wonderful and inspirational, I think.
We're going to both turn to interview India in a couple seconds, but before we do, where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now?
As once again I mentioned earlier that that now this writing is my newest business, and I think that will continue. I see myself continuing to be an author. I see myself going to college for one thing, but, beyond that, I think that I am already actually writing another book. I'm currently 70,000 words into a manuscript for my my second book, which is a fantasy novel, so completely different subject matter. But that said, I do think that I see myself being a writer as my ultimate career.
Do you identify as Gen Z or Gen Alpha?
Gen Z.
Okay, so tell me how you think, before we talk to Gen Alpha over here, tell me how you think Gen Z is going to change entrepreneurship and business as a member of that generation.
I think that Generation Z, what we're going to bring to the table is our desire for not only social change, but also diversity and authenticity as key values, which I see as something that's fundamental to not just business, but specifically the idea of using business as a driver of social change, which is really our goal when writing the book. That's what we believe entrepreneurship is capable of. And in that way, I would say that businesses being honest to their consumers, providing a service to their communities, and businesses, more than that, we believe that diversity in companies, that whether that be in terms of gender, age is a big one in our book, ethnicity, whatever the case may be, we believe that entrepreneurship is something that can only benefit from greater diversity and greater perspectives and more perspectives. And I think that those are all values that our generation is stereotypically but also genuinely passionate about both in entrepreneurship and in life in general. And I think that that'll serve us well as we start our own businesses.
I'm so warmed to hear you say that, because it's become a little bit fashionable to question the value of diversity in businesses and in other places, and you just succinctly described what I think the best value of diversity is in the marketplace and in education. With that, are you ready to pass the torch and interview another CEO with me?
Of course.
Okay. Which one of us should start with, India?
Up to you. Do you want me to start, or?
Yeah, you start.
All right. So I'll just start it out with what inspired you to start your own business?
So back when I was in, I think, 3rd grade, a couple of my friends started another jewelry company that helped in the Ukraine and Russian war. And so I was really inspired by that because I thought it was a really great idea. And so I think last year I started my own business, and it's basically the same idea. It's a jewelry company that donates to She's the First, which is an organization that helps women and girls all over the world.
That's amazing. I just wanted to quickly note before I move on to the next question that's exactly what I think the goal of our book is to give people mentors to look up to so that they know that entrepreneurship is a career path and that it is an option, and inspire people through showing them what entrepreneurship can do. So I think it's amazing that you saw someone else starting a business and you took it upon yourself to do the same.
India, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Tell me about the Tiny CEO series.
So the Tiny CEO series is basically a series of interviews with all women entrepreneurs who have started businesses, and just asking for advice and what it's like in their specific businesses.
Who's your dream interview for the Tiny CEO?
So as I said on the 10 News, my dream interview would be Natasha Case, who started Cool House, an ice cream company with
I know it.
different and funky flavors.
Ken, go for it.
Sure. So, what could you tell us a little bit more about She's the First, and how do you partner with them in your business in particular?
So She's the First is an organization that my mom works with, and they help fund women and girls all over the world to help support them in their dreams. And so, but I partner with She's the First by donating half of my total proceeds to them in their donation box.
I think now is the time where I relinquish any responsibility for questions whatsoever, and I let our two youngest CEOs interview the senior statesperson on the roster of CEOs here. Ben and Indy, are you guys ready to ask Amanda some questions as a successful CEO and entrepreneur in the beauty and wellness space?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want us to alternate, or we can just go one at a time?
Whatever your preference is.
All right. How about we alternate between each other? I will start us off with this question. We asked to all of the people we interviewed in our book this question, so we also wanted to pose it to you. What hashtag would you use to best describe yourself or your career?
Hashtag always be learning. I'm someone, actually, I did not start off at the age that you are. I became a CEO, I think I was about 37 or 38, somewhere in there. Became an entrepreneur probably around that age. So, but I have always loved learning. And that's what keeps me going every day, and being curious about people, about business, about something different. That's certainly my hashtag.
So my question is, what is the first question you ask when someone comes to you with a business idea? And what is the first thing you want to know?
Why did you invent it? I love hearing. I'm not a founder. But I love founders, and I love hearing about the inspiration behind the stories. I love the story of how someone started and why. Because I think that great businesses have unbelievable stories that birthed them, and there's nothing I love more than hearing them from founders.
I agree. And we also enjoyed that. I also enjoyed that. What do you wish you had known about getting started when you were our age? And in particular, what's the most important skill that you would say that Gen Alpha and Gen Z entrepreneurs need to learn as they're starting out?
I think, life is a journey, and the road of entrepreneurship, even though I haven't been on as many, you guys may be same number of years as me, is a roller coaster. And roller coasters are fun, but there are ups and there are downs. And I think learning that and knowing that, going through it, makes really cherish the ups and get through the downs. So I think that that's certainly something that I didn't really totally understand when I started it. Supergoop was a few $1 million and under 10 people when I started there. So I certainly understood what it was like to be pretty early on in a business. And what I would say to things that you learn is be kind. To your point, relationships, it's all about that. And it's amazing how your reputation will follow you through your whole life. The way you treat people will follow you your whole life. And every door that's ever been open to me is because I tried to do something, years before for someone, and it comes back around.
That's really good advice. So the next question is, what is the hardest part of being the CEO of Olaplex?
The hardest part of being any CEO is you have to sometimes make really tough decisions. You have to change things that people don't want to change. You have to steer the ship in a different direction. You might shut down a business. You might say this person isn't the right person for a certain job. Those days are really hard. But there's certainly part of being a CEO.
So Before I get back to the question that I was going to ask, I just wanted to follow up on that quickly. I was wondering, how do you make those decisions? Like in the cases of those tough decisions, which I think are a constant in leadership as a whole, not just entrepreneurship, but what do you think about how do you make a tough decision like that?
I think it's about knowing what's right for the business, but always treating the people involved as, you know, as empathetically and as they deserve to be treated, and being able to separate what's right for the business, and really kind of just staying true to that through a decision like that.
And then my other question was reflecting a bit on your journey from finance to the beauty industry. What inspired that shift, do you think? And how have your experiences in finance influenced your leadership in beauty?
So my first job was about 10 blocks that way at 85 Broad Street. As an analyst at Goldman. And, you know, I still say that I run decisions through a P&L. So like that foundation of learning how businesses actually work, and really understanding how you create value for your investors, and how you think about strategy was certainly something that allowed me to do what I do every day. But it was also something that I learned a lot from, but it wasn't my true passion. And when I was investing in a lot of businesses, I thought that everyone on the other side of the table, the entrepreneurs and the CEOs, were having all the fun. And so I took a big bet and went back to business school and made this big pivot that most people thought I was swimming in the wrong direction. And I had faith in myself, and I decided to take a chance. So that was probably my first step into entrepreneurship, was following, you know, what I loved to do, what I was passionate about.
Why don't you guys each take one more question, then we'll open it up to the audience.
What is your favorite part of your job in business?
Watching other people succeed, finding great young talent, and trying to sort of set them on a journey that, you know, hopefully the time that they spend in whatever company it is that I'm running will look back and say, that was an amazing part of my career.
All right. What emerging trends do you think will shape the future of the beauty sector, and how should brands adapt to stay relevant? And also, specifically, I wanted to note and talk about AI, and how do you think that it will impact the beauty sector?
There's a lot in there. There's probably a whole I'll say the one most fascinating thing, since we're on the topic of Gen Alphas, is the introduction of Gen Alphas to the beauty industry. More younger and younger. I think when I started a skincare routine, I was probably 16, 17 years old, and now 10-year-olds are kind of coming into this industry, and it's totally changed how people think about branding, how they think about product development. It's really exciting part of the industry that's happening. With respect to AI, I think that one of the things I'm most excited about is how it changes the ability to create content, and create and target content, and be more effective at marketing.
So I wanted to, if it's all right, to ask another question. With regards to what you said about how people younger and younger are becoming a part of the beauty industry, would you say that that's healthy for our society?
I think that, well, I don't know, my son, we'll see, if we're learning to wash your face is a good thing. So, you know, I think that, I think some of it is, you know, taking care of your skin, taking care of your hair is a positive thing. Do young women need 12-step routines? Probably not. So I think, you know, it's a brand's responsibility to make sure that you are communicating effectively about what different people need and servicing those. So I think it depends on the situation.
I want to pivot, if we can, from beauty to larger business and give the audience an opportunity to ask questions to any of these three wonderful people who have chosen to spend their evening with you. Go for it.
Fenley, whether it be your soaps or this upcoming fantasy book, you seem like such a great creative. What's the place of creativity in the entrepreneur scene?
I would say that, at least to me, entrepreneurship and creativity are really inextricably entwined. That in my mind, that the skills that you need for entrepreneurship are oftentimes also ones that are essential to gaining a platform, to any commercialization of art, whether that be writing a book, whether that be something in music, in if you're painting or some sort of fine art. I think that in general, at least we found when writing the book, that the things we were learning related to entrepreneurship were just as applicable to the process of writing a book as they were to entrepreneurship. So, for instance, we found a lot of the people we talked to spoke about their experiences in seeking capital, talking to venture capitalists, and that's not entirely different from attempting to find an agent or negotiate a publishing contract. And I think that there were a lot of there's a publicity component to both outreach and events for a book and for a new business. And I think that one of the things that we learned is that entrepreneurship is that in many cases the skills of entrepreneurship are applicable no matter what your career is. So I would say that in that way, being learning about entrepreneurship is fundamental to succeeding as a creator. And I would say that also goes in the reverse, where being creative can be an asset when it comes to starting a business. So, for instance, there was we had a section in our in the entrepreneurs we talked to called the creator, and I think that while there's a place for finance, where there's a place for leadership, and so many other different in strategy and so many other different aspects in skills in entrepreneurship, I think that creativity can also be an invaluable one, especially as a founder. That coming up with an idea often requires not just innovation, but also a spark of inspiration as well. And I think that's really what creation is all about.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Tara.
Amanda, as a female CEO, do you have any particular advice for women in business and aspiring entrepreneurs like India and maybe some others in the room?
I get asked that a lot. I had, like India, the privilege of going to an all-girls school for 13 years, and I think that made me think about myself just as a person and not as a woman or a girl first. And I think that's my best advice, is to do what you believe you're doing and to do a great job at it, and just do that, and kind of not always put that label on oneself. So.
When you're hiring somebody, what are the top 2 skills or characteristics that you look for? If we have some younger people in the audience, when someone comes to you, what are you looking for?
I care that they're a good person, first and foremost, and doesn't go past that. Won't go any further if I don't feel that that's the case. And with young people, just a willingness to go the extra mile, willingness to learn, a willingness to just kind of throw oneself in and make it happen.
If I could ask you a question about that I'm
Yes.
curious about, as a follow-up, for the first of those 2 things that you mentioned, would you say that businesses today are doing an adequate job of really hiring based on morality, based on kindness, those values that you pinpointed, which are ones that I personally value as well, and I would pay attention to in an employee. But I feel like it can seem at times like that's becoming increasingly rare in the corporate environment, and I would ask how do you think that we can pay more attention to kindness in employees and in executives and in general in leadership? And as for your second thing that you mentioned with regards to going the extra mile, I think that to a lot of people, especially younger people among Gen Z, Gen Alpha, even millennials, that it can often seem as if, in a lot of cases, that going the extra mile is that people are questioning going the extra mile on the basis of is the company actually going to is the company going to reward me for this? Does it mean anything? And I think that in a lot of cases people wonder if working an extra hour to help their company succeed is really doing anything doing anything to help their career. And I was wondering, do you think that businesses do enough to help go the extra mile for their employees, just as you asked if their employees go the extra mile for them?
I like to think the answer to both those questions is yes. That, I can only speak to the places that I've worked. I've worked at places where I really believe people are good people and do the right thing. I think if anything, our world cares about that now more, and the culture within a company is that much more critical. So I'd say I think we're on the right path. With respect to what happens if I go the extra mile, again, I can only speak to the places that I am. I certainly notice it. And I think that you're investing not just in the company, but also what you're learning. So when I was down the block here, I definitely was, put it all in. And, I think that if you want to get to a CEO seat, it takes a lot of work, and it does take going the extra mile. So I think it's worth it.
Any more from our audience?
I have one.
Go ahead.
I've never considered myself an entrepreneur, and yet I started a business. Am I just wrong about my perception about myself?
Should I answer that?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say that is in a way, I think that entrepreneurship is as much a set of it's as much a mindset as it is a occupation. And I think that was something that we talked a lot about in our book, was the skills that you need for entrepreneurship and how those can apply to all facets of life, all sectors and areas, that not just specifically starting a business. And so I would say, as far as if you are an entrepreneur having started a business, I would say most likely yes, but also I would ask you in return, if that's all right, what are you learning in the process of starting a business? Because in many cases I think that maybe you don't, maybe if you don't see yourself as an entrepreneur, maybe you're still learning about entrepreneurship, and that can be just as, an entrepreneurial education can, through really diving in to the actually starting as an entrepreneur, that maybe it's a matter not of being an entrepreneur, but of experiencing entrepreneurship and the learning and experiences that go along with that.
That's a very thoughtful question. I don't have an immediate answer, but I would say that my journey is still learning about my business, and how to run the business. But I don't really employ a lot of people. It's sort of a one-woman show. And it's a lifestyle business for me. So I guess, yeah, you're right. I don't know if I have the mindset.
We have a book for you.
Yeah, I'm sure about it.
Go ahead, and we'll take one more after this.
Congratulations to all of you. And thank you for all being here and sharing your experience. I'd be curious for the whole panel. Here in New York, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is the only area in the country where salaries are public. Men and women can find out, men, women, whatever gender, can find out if they're being paid equitably, and Fenley in particular. In speaking to all these different entrepreneurs, I was curious to know if you talked about pay equality and the impact of that. What does your generation think about women making 83 cents on the dollar compared to men?
I think that in the process of writing this book, that we did talk a lot about gender inequality. With that said, I think that we were focused less on specifically the monetary aspects of entrepreneurship in general, not just with regards to pay, but just we were focusing more on the skills than the money. And I think that's a facet of our goals when writing the book, and that's a result of us attempting to show what you can do with entrepreneurship and what you can learn from entrepreneurship, rather than just what the benefits of entrepreneurship are, which I think that in this day and age we have plenty of resources telling us that entrepreneurship can make you money if you succeed. And so I think that with that in mind, some of the things that we found were some of the difficulties, especially with funding. We talked to people who had specifically female CEOs who struggled who struggled to find funding in more male-dominated industries in, say, Silicon Valley, that they struggled in that regard. And I think that was something that we spoke to them about, was not just how can you affect not just how you can get your equal share on an individual level, but how you can make your mark in a sector which is being dominated by people who are not the same gender as you, who might have completely different perspectives, outlooks, or experiences. And I think that with that in mind, one of the things that we found was that in many cases it was hopeful, that especially I think that this is something that is benefited by our generation being generally focused on and passionate about social justice, that more and more people are, that it's become, diversity has been something that's not just beneficial to companies, but it's become essential for companies. But I think that with that said, that it's becoming, that gap is being far slower than I think would be ideal, but slowly shortened. And I think that really it's a matter of showing that anyone can be a part of entrepreneurship, and that was something that through our book we wanted to demonstrate, was that it doesn't matter it doesn't matter your age when you start a business. You can start a business whether you be, we interview boomers, we interview people, like I said, younger than us, and I think that extends equally to gender as well. So yes, of course, anyone can start a business, and that anyone can make a difference in through their company. And I think that one of the things we are focused on through a lot of our interviews is how can we make that easier in spaces where maybe it isn't as equitable.
Let's take one more. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a plant. But India, Amanda talked a little bit about the team and her employees and seeing them thrive. Do you have a team that helps you?
So my team is mostly my family. They help me with a lot of parts of my business because my sister is my graphic designer and my little brother helps me package my bracelets. So that is my
I don't know how we can do better than ending on a note about family as your team. So thank you all for joining us. I know that Fenley will be around to answer all of your questions as an author, and that India, Amanda, and I will be here for a few minutes as well. Thanks for joining us tonight. I believe that Fenley will be signing copies of the book. So for anyone who hasn't received yet or purchased their copy of Down to Business, please visit Fenley at his table.